Let's look at some reasons why HEMA is the ultimate best martial art of all martial arts. So recently I posted a response video to Schola Gladiatoria talking about elitism and gatekeeping in HEMA, that is historical European martial arts, and I refuted that this was an issue. But we have to talk about the elephant in the room, and that is that HEMA is in fact the best and the most elite martial art that you can take part in today in the year 2021. So in this video we're going to go through some of the main reasons why HEMA is basically the best martial art, why it's better than all the other martial arts you can do, why it trumps them all. Although I'll just add the caveat that it does connect to some other martial arts. So some other martial arts are pretty damn good, but that's partly because they're strongly connected to HEMA. But before we go fully into looking at the reasons why HEMA is the best martial art, we're first going to look at the sponsors for this video, who very kindly are Mech Arena. Mech Arena is the awesome tactical 5v5 team-based shooter game where you can control giant robots with awesome guns and amazing armor. It's great for a quick pick up and play, but also it's skill based as well, so you get better as you practice. There are tons of awesome mechs, all with different armor and weapons and ways you can customize them. As well as custom spray jobs, there are also weapon combinations, pretty much infinite combinations that you can put together, so you can play in your own style. There are also loads of different game modes. You can instantly jump into quick matches where you're matched with other players to play solo by yourself, or you can team up with other friends of yours to play against other players from around the world. Mech Arena is free to download, free to play. So Mech Arena is actually gearing up for its official launch in August, but if you're in the US, Canada, UK or another lucky country, then you can actually get playing it right now. It's completely free to play on Android or iOS, and you can use my link in the description below or my QR code to get 1 millispec skin, 500 A coins, 70,000 credits, and get a head start before everyone else does. This is going to be absolutely massive, don't miss out. I guess like lots of you viewers out there, I absolutely love armor and weapons of many kinds, and it's great to see kind of tank-like armor on these awesome walking robots. Also some of the firearms they've got on there have got pretty realistic kind of feel and sound to them actually. So back to the main content for this video, thanks for sticking with us. We're going to look at some of the main reasons why HEMA is the best martial art that you can practice. Well, first of all, what does HEMA cover? Historical European martial arts. It covers documented historical fighting systems from what we loosely term Europe, and that can involve things with swords, like this longsword here, or Federschwert. It could be things with polearms, different types of swords, sword and buckler, things like rapier and dagger, this kind of thing. But it can also include wrestling and different forms of boxing or pugilism. It can even be extrapolated out to cover certain aspects of missile weapons, for example, archery or even shooting. So therefore, one of the main headline reasons why HEMA is the best martial art is because it basically covers everything from unarmed to armed, including close combat weapons and missile weapons as well. What other martial art does that? Now, the next reason that HEMA is better than most other martial arts, I won't say all of them, but most of them, is that it's so well documented. It's documented for hundreds of years, going all the way back in actual technical treatises, not just descriptions in histories, not just pictures on walls or in paintings or in statues, but indeed it's actually technically described. The details of the techniques and how to do them, how to fence different opponents, how to hold your weapon, how to do specific parries and ripostes, this kind of thing, is specifically described in treatises that go all the way back to the 14th century. Now, I should point out, of course, that indeed there are treatises, or manuals some people will call them incorrectly, but treatises. There are manuscripts talking about the use of weapons or indeed unarmed martial arts, which do exist in other places. We find them in Japan, in China, in Korea, in Mamluk Egypt, in Persia, and other places as well, Turkey for example as well. But the fact is we don't have such a massive corpus of work as we do from medieval, Renaissance and post-Renaissance industrial era Europe. We have got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of treatises telling us how to use different types of weapons or how to fight unarmed. And you simply don't get this from anywhere else in the world. So next up on most important reasons why HEMA is the best martial art is that not only does it cover armed and unarmed and all sorts of different weapons and all sorts of different periods from history and up to the modern age as well, But it's also, therefore, the most complete martial art. If you want to learn how to wrestle and box, if you want to learn how to defend yourself against a knife, if you want to learn how to use a knife or a sword, or a bayonet or any of these things, then it's there. There are manuals, there are treatises for you. So it literally covers everything. Now, as a result of covering everything and being connected to several modern martial arts, particularly via World War I and World War II, what we call combatives. So if we look at, for example, certain martial arts that have been trained to the military, or certain systems that have been taught to the military, whether it's British or US Special Forces, Israeli Special Forces, a lot of these have their root in the training that was done for trench raiding in World War I initially, and then also in Special Forces in World War II, for example, commandos, the SAS, SBS, things like this, and the precursors to the Navy SEALs and stuff like that. So a lot of what they were taught ultimately came from a combination of European martial traditions, and it has to be accepted also with some imported Japanese, particularly jiu-jitsu and judo in there as well. So there definitely was external to Europe input into European and American martial systems in the 20th century, absolutely, not denying that. But those things, particularly those combative systems that we see all the way up to World War II, are covered in HEMA. So as well as doing those things, of course, there is the modern world of MMA, and it has to be said that most MMA fighting is catered specifically for the ring, or octagon, and so it's a particular type of sporting fighting that doesn't allow certain things, and obviously is within a certain fighting environment that's not necessarily like a battlefield or a street corner or whatever, but those are very strongly related again, as well as people famously know Jiu-Jitsu and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but what they don't necessarily know quite so well or acknowledge quite so often is that they're very closely related also to Western boxing, which has its roots in pugilism, which goes all the way back to at least the 17th century, and we can say earlier than that probably as well. And wrestling styles, catch wrestling, for example. So catch wrestling, very, very important in several different modern martial arts and wrestling styles that exist today, including MMA. And they have their root, again, if we go all the way back into the medieval period in Europe. So via boxing and wrestling, but then through special forces and military application, knife use and knife defense stuff as well. Actually, these HEMA sources, which you can train of the style of the 18th century or 19th century or early 20th century, all covered in HEMA, and they're all still got modern applications both in sport and in the military and law enforcement as well. Now, the next super important reason I'm going to give why HEMA is the best martial art you can train in today is because of the way that we train. We've got a very inclusive and opening attitude to training. So your particular club might focus in a certain historical system, but when it comes to actually fencing, what you'll often find is you can adapt and use your knowledge you have. If you have a background like me, I've got backgrounds in modern Olympic style fencing, also in Japanese and Chinese martial arts. Many people come into it with Filipino martial arts or, you know, Krav Maga, modern stuff, MMA, boxing, all kinds of different martial arts backgrounds. You can bring that knowledge and experience with you and utilize it. So the way that we train in HEMA might be based on specific historical systems, but the way we actually spar or fight or compete is actually quite open to interpretation. So you do get people coming into it with backgrounds in modern Olympic fencing who've actually not done an awful lot of HEMA, and they come into it and can fence with a rapier or a small sword particularly, but sometimes even with long swords or saber or whatever. And they can fence somewhat effectively, and they might absorb some of that HEMA technique and knowledge and adapt that. So we're very inclusive and open to cross-training also with other types of martial arts. Many of us cross-train with Japanese martial arts or Filipino martial arts, or indeed Indian martial arts as well, Indian swordsmanship or Persian swordsmanship. So there are lots of people in HEMA who, as well as training HEMA, also train other things. So we're very open to that. And the way that we train essentially has two main strains to it, which not all martial arts have. We've got the kind of what some people see as more dry, kind of textbook based, learning the techniques, learning the stuff from the book, you know, standing in lines, doing the drills kind of thing in class. But then we also have sparring, which obviously feeds into a competitive environment. And you can travel all over the world taking part in HEMA competitions, has a rapidly advancing competition level. And as I say, there are people who are very competent modern Olympic fencers and very competent in other martial arts, kendo or whatever, that come into what we do and compete, and they don't wipe the floor with HEMA people. They, have to work hard to maintain the level of the competition. So there's a high level of potential competition in there, lots of different types of combatants from different systems, different European systems, but also different non-European systems as well. And we spar, and you have to bear in mind that with traditional martial arts, there are plenty of martial arts out there which have a lot of drilling and a lot of learning of patterns or whatever, but they don't compete, they don't really spar. We actually put our martial art under pressure, and we're expected to learn the technique from the 15th century treaties or the 19th century manual, but at the end of the day, our ultimate goal is to be able to use that technique in a competitive environment under pressure. Okay, so we are training the martial arts to be used in a combative environment, which not all martial arts do. And our competitions are open to people from other martial arts. We stand up and we say, yep, you can come and compete in our competition. If your background is kendo or kenjutsu or Filipino martial arts, Kali, Eskrima, whatever, or wushu, could be anything, Wing Chun. If you want to come and compete in our competition, then you come to the event, you enter, you can compete. So we're open to that. So we stand up and we put our techniques and our systems where our mouth is, and we make them stand up on the competition floor. Now, the final reason why you should do HEMA and why HEMA is one of the fastest growing and best martial arts around at the moment is we look really, really cool. Obviously, not just me, we all look really, really cool. We've got great training gear being designed for us, new implements, our sparring equipment, our fencing masks, newly designed designs that are coming out, new types of glove and body armor that are coming out, new types of practice weapons and sparring weapons that are designed for our competition, are some of the best made training weapons of any martial art in the world. We've got some of the coolest gear, and yeah, it's not cheap, and I won't pretend that it is. But the fact is that we've got some of the coolest things, and Japanese, Chinese martial arts are rapidly starting to emulate and copy our protective equipment and our sparring weapons and bringing them into their own traditional martial arts and emulating a lot of what we do actually, because they can see how fast growing it is, they can see how well it works and how cool it looks. So there's another great reason why HEMA is one of the best martial arts out there at the moment. So to conclude, is HEMA elitist? Only in the sense that we know that we're better than everybody else. And if you know that, you've got to accept it. Now, obviously, this has all been partly tongue-in-cheek. I'm a huge fan of traditional Japanese martial arts. I've done Chinese martial arts, also a big fan of those, very interested in Chinese history. Also Indian martial arts. I've got a lot of friends involved in Indian martial arts. I love Indian swords. You'll see some behind me. So I've got a huge interest in martial arts from all over the world, and weapons and arms and armour from all over the world, military history. So fantastic stuff. In fact, I don't just do HEMA. I've done lots of things before HEMA, and I still am very much interested in other things to do with HEMA as well. But I hope that this tongue-in-cheek video has perhaps, for some of you, highlighted some of the reasons why HEMA actually is a really freaking cool martial art to get involved with right now. And also, for any of you who've thought, well, my main focus is, Japanese swordsmanship or Filipino double stick stuff, Kali or whatever. But I'd quite like to give HEMA a try. Come along, give it a try, see what you think. We're very open, very welcoming, and we cross-train with all sorts of different people. And as I said, most people involved in HEMA, or at least a good percentage of people involved in HEMA, have done other martial arts in the past or are still currently doing other martial arts, including MMA and whatever else, unarmed and armed. It's not all about swords. If you just want to do unarmed stuff or you just want to do knife stuff, you can do that. There's something for everyone. So hopefully this has been useful and encouraging, and hopefully for some of you inspiring enough to look up your local HEMA club and think, let's go and try out a session. I hope I see you again soon back on my channel here. Give us a like and a subscribe if you haven't done already, and take care, folks. Be safe. Thanks for watching. We've got extra videos on Patreon. Please give our Facebook a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Cheers, folks.